Okay, let's take a look at, these are the theorems you'll want to have in your notes. These are the theorems that this lesson is based upon. Here's the first one. If two intersecting lines form a linear pair of congruent angles, then the lines are perpendicular. This is based on the fact that, notice we have two angles here and here. Together they form a straight line. If they're congruent, that means they have to add to equal 180. Well, if they're also congruent, then we know that each of them would have to be 90 and 90, because 90 and 90 are the only two equal numbers that add to be 180. If it were anything else, they wouldn't add to be 180. That is why we know that if we have two congruent angles, okay, that form a straight line together, then those lines must be perpendicular. Okay, so it tells us that L and M not only have two congruent angles there, but that those angles are 90 degrees each. The next property is that a perpendicular transversal theorem. In a plane, if a transversal is perpendicular to one of the two parallel lines, then it is perpendicular to the other. So here we have, starting, we had a pair of parallel lines. We knew they were parallel based on those arrow markings there. And we had line P. Line P is perpendicular to N. Now, we know based on corresponding angles, okay, our properties for transversals, that if this is a right angle, this must also be a right angle because corresponding angles are congruent. Okay, so that tells me that not only is Q perpendicular to line N, it's also perpendicular to this line P down here. And here is our final one. If two coplanar lines are perpendicular to the same line, then the two lines are parallel. Okay, so where does that come from? Well, if we have this line here, it's perpendicular here. This is a 90-degree angle. If it's also perpendicular here, and that's a 90-degree angle, notice we have corresponding angles that are congruent. And when does that happen? It happens when your lines are parallel. Okay, so those are three properties that go along with lines being perpendicular.